This is Red Radio, powered by UBA, Africa's global bank.
Hi everyone, welcome to Africa and Everywhere Conversations with UNGA. It's your host, Tony Elumelu, and I hope you've enjoyed the last two episodes. So this episode is also going to touch on UNGA as well, but just ever so briefly because we're going to go into more topics. And I have a very special guest today. I think many of you know him. So he is the chairman of Heirs Holdings Group, also the chairman of UBA Group and the chairman of the Tony Elumelu Foundation. So I think that gives it away. If it hasn't given it away, then I don't know. But I have here today Mr. Tony Elumelu, who is also my dad. So hello, Daddy.
Okay. Good to be on your show today.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so I'm going to go through a series of questions, but I kind of want it to be conversational as well, because you do a lot of interviews.
All right.
People have listened to a lot of your interviews, but this should be a slightly different type of interview. You know, a lot of interviewers, there's questions maybe perhaps they can't necessarily ask you, and questions I can, in the capacity as your daughter. So, yes. But I'm just going to start with trying to wrap up our UNGA series. So we all know that you are the United Nations General Assembly this year, and I just wanted to ask you, as the chairman of all those different companies I've even mentioned, so from the perspective of the different caps you wear, what was the success of UNGA? So maybe from a TEF founder perspective, what did you guys achieve at UNGA? As the chairman of UBA Group, what did you achieve? Chairman of HA. Okay, yeah.
UNGA, despite the cynicisms, criticisms, is useful. It brings global leaders together. It brings all shades of voices to the table. Who can listen to one another and formulate a kind of global agenda on major issues, from issues in Gaza to Ukraine, Russia, to the flood disasters and the climate change effects in Africa. So we see all of this. So to me, being UNGA 79, that's the name for 2024 UNGA, I think was useful. I had the opportunity to interact with the fellow global leaders who discuss issues that are very important to me. My agenda for UNGA 2024 was threefold. One was to talk about an advanced transformative economic growth agenda for Africa, so that we can eradicate poverty and have prosperity on the continent to stem the challenges we have in Africa. Second was to discuss the issue of equitable energy transition. And third was to talk about youth employment, youth empowerment. This is very critical because I've always said that joblessness is a betrayal of a generation and must deal with it. So what am I going back with from UNGA? I think it's a long journey, but the conversation has started. We're reinforcing the messaging. We're telling the world that if you look at the energy transition, for instance, how is it beneficial to Africa? Africa emits less than 4% of the carbon emission in the world today. Yet, Africa bears the brunt of global this climate change issue. So we're saying, let us think of how to encourage Africa so that we can adopt a combination approach in fixing the energy issue challenge we have on the continent. A continent of 1.4 billion people where over 65% do not have access to electricity. It's not sustainable. It does not create for an equitable world. So those are the kind of issues that UNGA provides platform and opportunity for policymakers, global citizens, global business leaders, development world agencies, for us to come together and prioritize these issues that everyone. So I come with my own issues. People from the Gulf, they come with their own issue. The Caribbean, so it's a place where everyone comes with their issues. But at the end, you hope to advocate and advance what is good for humanity. So that to me is a major. This my UNGA perspective is not so much of business, but on the business side, not just business per se. United Bank for Africa operates in the US as the only African bank that operates in the USA. We've been there for over 40 years, and we are that it was time we started hosting and welcoming Africans to America. So we launched our first UBA Africa reception, which convened global leaders, royalty, global policymakers, global business leaders, global philanthropists, all in one room to just listen to African voices, hear African voices, hear Africa speak and listen to Africa. And it's happening. So we're happy with the first debut, and we think that it will keep getting better as we go on.
Thank you for your answer. Thank you for explaining to us what you did at UNGA. Just even quickly, I wanted to touch on this thing because I don't know if you read your comments. Well, I know you read your comments sometimes, like on your social media. And a comment I'll sometimes see something like, oh, this man or all these Nigerian leaders, you go to these conferences and what do you ever get done for people back in the country or back on the continent? And so I'm actually glad you've spoken about this and people are getting to hear from you firsthand. What is the aim of coming to these sorts of world gatherings, right? And I'm glad as well that I can try and use this platform to help dispel that narrative, because it actually is helpful coming to these types of things and even just showcasing that, look, Africans should be taken seriously and look at what we do, but also someone needs to advocate for the issues we have on the continent. That point you made about climate transition, and you didn't even phrase it in our conversation, but I know before in the past when you've spoken at other engagements like COP28 and things, you use the term climate equity. And I really like it because, like you rightly pointed out, Africa contributes less than 3% of global emissions to the world stage, yet we're the ones that the West and could try and say that, we need to curb our greenhouse emissions, which is also not fair because these other countries, have developed, etc., and we're still developing. So essentially, basically, I'm just trying to say that, thank you for explaining what you actually come and do at these things, and hopefully people will relax if they don't.
May I comment briefly on that? Say that I know, in fairness to people, skeptics, and that's why I started by saying, skepticism notwithstanding, criticism notwithstanding, that UNGA, things get done too. Of course, scale of 1 to 10 might not be 10 over 10. But imagine a world without this platform.
Yeah.
Just imagine a world without this platform. There will be more chaos and crisis in the world. And the truth is, as Africans, we're better off being heard at the table than not being there. There was a President Clinton organized lunch on Monday, during the session, and I was opportune to be in the room. And quite a few of us were there. And I did speak about this. We were talking about climate change, but I brought African perspective to the table. I let people know the issue we have on the continent, because people speak from their own position of information, from what they know. Imagine if there were no African boys at the table.
Exactly.
Certain conclusions could have been reached without people understanding that over 60% of people on the continent of Africa have no access to electricity. Without people knowing that if you dry up capital and fund to Africa to help Africa convert their natural resources into energy or power generation, that it will create more division in the world. Okay, so you need people at the table making such conversations, advancing such conversation and such So that
and to amplify these issues.
Amplify this. So I think, for me as a person, as a founder of the Tony Elumelu Foundation, I believe everyone on the continent of Africa knows that my passion for young ones has no match. I've often advocated that the future of Africa lies in the hands of our young ones. I've often advocated that those who prioritize their young ones go far. And we have demonstrated this with what we do at the Tony Elumelu Foundation, funding over 20,000 young men and women across the continent, giving them source of economic livelihood, and more importantly, giving them hope, that the future will be better. So we do all of this. And when I am also out here, it's further opportunity to galvanize more resources to see how we can support more people on the continent. Thank you.
Thank you. Very nice start. Very nice. So we're now going to segue away from the UNGA conversations.
I like that one. Segue.
Segue, thank you. We're going to segue away from the UNGA conversations, and I'm going to ask you some more. Hopefully you haven't had these questions in an interview before. So let's go. Okay. Firstly, a recent LinkedIn post you were talking about, the post was about how you were coming up and the worries you had at that point in your life. And then just talking about how at different stages in your life, you have new worries, new things that keep you up at night, etc., etc., etc. And when I read it, it brought to light for me, it specifically highlighted the differences we've had in our upbringings, or like the different things that drive both of us. Something you always like to say is that, for me, my dad was Tony Elumelu, or everybody knows him. My dad is, for lack of a better word, like a big man,
As you say in Africa, a big man. Yeah.
Yes, as you say in Africa, exactly. And I know that wasn't your background. Like there was a lot more hustling, to make it. So I wanted to ask, even though there's the obvious disparities we've had in our upbringings, do you think we've had any similarities?
Well, I think maybe because there's a biological connection and a sociological impact of both being under my tutelage or under my influence, I can say there's some similarity. But the truth is there's more dissimilarity than similarities. I mean, you are in New York now, okay? I can remember the first time I traveled out of Nigeria in my life. That was after I graduated. You have had more exposure in life than that. Today you have your laptop, your computer, etc. In my time, we use calculator, we use slide rule, we use logbook to calculate things. So it's a different world. But the truth is, things keep changing, and one need to also keep adapting to the new world. And even though I didn't have a lot of the kind of background you have, but maybe there's even more worries and challenges in the world today than my time. Okay, so this commoditization of knowledge, influences all over the place. They put a lot of pressure on young ones. But the truth is, the kind of worries I had growing up, it'd be different from your world. But that does not mean that you do not have worries in your time also now. Okay, so there are different. There are different. I wanted to get a job and a living, own a car, get a flat, and not be associated with poverty.
Yeah.
For you, at least you live in Nigeria, you live in Ikoyi. When I was growing up, I didn't have that luxury. For you, I'm sure you have access to electricity in most parts, most parts. I didn't have that. When I was in school, there was a time they put off light. We used to call it light out. I think it was 9 p.m. every night.
We had lights out. We had lights out.
I don't know about that. But people had almost like 10 p.m., 11 p.m. or 12. You guys had access to a mobile phone now. Before, if you wanted to write letters to our parents, to communicate with our parents, we write letter, we post the letters. It might take 3 weeks or so to get to them and they will respond, etc. Life has changed, right? Now it's click, dial, and you're talking.
Yeah.
So it's quite different. But I must admit that there's also a lot more social pressure on your generation than in my own time. Now, what's the way forward? I think, as I tell you at home, there's a lot more in terms of both parents and also children to do more to make sure that what do I want as your dad? I want to make sure that you are brought up well. You are not fearing. You have respect for people, but that you can also stand on your own, not too sheltered, stand on your own and do things, and that you're able to pick up from where your mom and I stop, and then take it to the next level. And that those who succeed you too, that you're able to instill in them the same sense of hunger, discipline, and hard work. And to go to even take it further. Because
the next level.
Just so that way it becomes dynastic, it becomes institutionalized. Because nobody wants to build today and then the next generation comes and just falls. Yeah. So it's a constant reminder to all of us that the task ahead, is big.
Okay, thank you. And I like how you touched on that. Even though we have differences in growing up, I probably do have some new social issues or stresses that you didn't have. Correct. And just to touch on one of them is obviously the pressure of having parents that have been very successful, right?
Sure.
So I appreciate that. Obviously, I'm very proud of that and grateful. And like you said as well, it's then, okay, so what are my sisters and brothers and I now going to do? Are we going to continue this and take it to the next level? Or maybe we're just going to handle it not in the proper way and then it all just crumbles. But then that even comes with certain levels of embarrassment, because everybody is watching. All your 2 million followers and just more will see this. So just things like this are kind of on your mind as you're growing up. So those are some differences, I'm sure. Whereas you definitely had your pressures as well.
Yeah. Well, but your concern is real. However, it's just to make sure that does not put a lot more pressure on you, because it's like taking it one step at a time, So the way to reassure yourself and know that you're on course is okay. I went to school, primary school, I did well in class. So secondary school, I did well. I got all my A stars and A levels. I did very well. University, I did well. And so it shows therefore that in any class you have found yourself in, you have been succeeding. So all things being equal, you would succeed too, individually. So that is the way to look at it, and that's how I advise people. So, I know you're not the only one in that category who thinks about it, but people should just know they should not put more pressure on themselves. They should just pace themselves and take it one step at a time. Just relate yourself where you are today to the stage, and see how well you're doing. What percentile of your peer group that you're in, and that is enough assurance that things are going to play well.
That was really good advice. Thank you. Okay, so now I want to move on a bit to touch on UBA. So we know UBA is United Bank for Africa. It's in 20 different African countries. It also has presence in the UAE, Paris, London, America. I know my stuff. But I remember there was once you spoke about how you had been on the way to work I think you were in a bus and you saw UBA, the Marina building in the distance, and then you had to come off the bus. I'm not sure if this is the story where you cut your hand or maybe it's okay. No, yeah, it's not okay. It's not that one. But you came off the bus, right? And obviously you saw that UBA building in the distance, and I'm sure you never could have thought you'd become CEO of... Actually, no, you would lead the merger, first of all. You'd become CEO of that UBA. No, not even just that UBA Group. Eventually become chairman of UBA Group, and then leave and go on to do even more. So before we touch on the whole CEO thing, I just wanted to ask, when you were younger, what did UBA even mean to you? Was it on your mind?
No, let me tell you. So when I was younger, precisely when I was doing my National Youth Service Corps in Nigeria, when you finish your first degree, you go for your national service. That national service, National Youth Service Corps, where they post you to a state other than your state of origin, other than state of residence, and also say where you schooled, so that you can have an experience of what happened in other parts of the country. And I dare say that it was so good. Most of my friends are there from northern part of Nigeria. I made those friends during this National Youth Corps. And so that, when I recall when I went to serve in 19...
And what state? What state was it?
I served in Sokoto, the very far part, northwestern part of Nigeria, okay? Sharing border with other countries, other Sahel region, in the Sahel region. So when I went to serve, I hadn't been to Sokoto all my life. I just entered a bus that took almost 18 hours to drive to Sokoto.
Wow.
And then, but when I got to Sokoto, it's a new life, wonderful, hospitable environment. And I started my youth corps. And I recall I was serving at Union Bank, and a friend of mine was serving at UBA. UBA was such a fresh bank. The office of UBA was world class. And God, we envied the color, the UBA color, the environment. Everything about UBA was world class. And we all longed to be in this institution. So our friend who was serving at UBA was like first class institution, first class citizen, working his cover. And we were like the Union Bank. What, I never envisaged, I never even dreamed of it. But again, so that is the point, about life is you don't need to keep doing certain things right. Be hard work, be hungry, be disciplined, be diligent. Anything you do, just do it well and just keep the hope alive. And so one day I became CEO of this UBA. And one day also I became the chairman of UBA as I am currently. And so it's a thing of joy. And it used to be a surprise, but now, it's reality now.
Yeah, that's really nice. Thank you. Touching on that whole, so you're now chairman of UBA Group, but I remember when, before you were chairman, you were CEO of UBA, right? And it was in 2010 you had to step down as chairman of UBA. Sorry, forgive me. It was in 2010 you had to step down as CEO of UBA. I remember before that 2010 though, when you were at UBA, you were always in the office. I mean, you're always in the office now, but it was a different type of always in the office. You'd be gone before we were going to school, or maybe the same time we were going for school. Then you'd be back after we'd be going for school, and then you'd be like, okay, good night, daddy. And then we'd just go and sleep. But you were always at the Marina building. But I wanted to ask, I'm sure you've been asked this by people a lot of times, but if the then CBN governor hadn't put into place, the bill, the thing about the tenure
limit.
The tenure limit for CEOs. Okay, exactly. What do you think you'd be doing at this point in your life? So 2024.
I think that is a very valid question, okay, you asked, and I must say is one of the one of the key chapters in my upcoming memoir.
Okay.
So, I had planned. I left UBA as CEO of UBA Group at the age of 47. I had a very early, quick rise in my career. I became the CEO of a bank at the age of 34, and then youngest CEO. And then at 47, I was 13 and a half years later, I was saying that when I clock 50, I will step down as a CEO. So that was my plan. And then so the tenure policy helped to fast track it. So brought it forward by 3 years. So even though it was surprising that such a policy could be put in place at the time, I was not hard hit because it was already in contemplation, and that I would leave to do the kind of thing that I do now. So I think God helped to fast track my embarking on this new trajectory of setting up the Tony Elumelu Foundation to further propagate and democratize luck and economic empowerment for young Africans, and also setting up Heirs Holdings, which is the family office proprietary investment company that helps to manage all the investments that we have made, because that is how to build to last. So I'm very grateful to God and happy that the journey started earlier than I had anticipated.
Yeah, no, that's really good. And I think this even touches on a point you had made in my last question, but just talking about how making sure that you're consistent in what you're doing, like working well, hard work, discipline. And I think this shows that even the reason it didn't hit you as hard perhaps is because you had already been prepared. Like you're already thinking of the next step, obviously, whilst doing what you're already doing. So that just adds to the whole, just be excellent in your work and keep working hard and being prepared, etc., etc., etc. And I think
also to add, a key issue is whatever you do it well. Anything,
exactly.
do it well, because it helps in your personal development, and you can always evoke and apply to everything. Look at the Tony Elumelu Foundation. I've never been in philanthropy world before. We're applying the same business principles and discipline and professionalism. See where we are today.
Yeah. No, it's true. Very true. And the other thing I had just wanted to say is it's very cool. Cool is not the right word, but it's very cool the amount of foresight I think that you even had, because you could have just decided that, okay, I've worked in the bank, this was nice, I worked in the finance sector, maybe I'll just come and run like a small company, or maybe I'll just be sitting on boards of people's companies, like I'll just live my life at that, but I think it's very commendable. Obviously, people commend you, so this is not like a new thing. But coming from me, I think it just is very commendable the way you tried to think, but how can I make this even bigger? Thinking about legacy, but also just how can you touch more people's lives, which is the very nature of the foundation, like institution. It's democratizing luck. And the whole Heirs Holdings Group is just very cool, because I think looking at it now, it looks like, how did you know? Like, wow, like how could you have thought this could all like add together?
It looks like it was scripted.
Yes, it looks like it was scripted, but it definitely wasn't. And it's just nice for people to hear and be reminded, I think, about how you had to reshift your life after that tenure policy, but you still made something of it. And like you said, we thank God for that. So that's nice.
I think it's learning in resilience, tenacity, focus, foresight, and not giving up easily. I think that just always define the future that you want, and know that to make that future happen, you have to work hard, you have to be disciplined, you have to be focused, and you have to make sacrifices. And if you put in all of this in, at the end, with the luck of God, you will get that.
Yeah, you'll surely see outcomes. Yeah.
This is Red Radio, powered by UBA, Africa's global bank.